Be ridiculous and be free. Ever felt like a marionette, your strings pulled by the invisible hands of others' expectations? Have you stood at the precipice of a decision, a desire, a simple expression of self, only to be yanked back by the chilling whisper, "But what will they think?" If so, you're not just human. You're exquisitely, painfully, beautifully human. And perhaps you're also on the verge of a profound liberation, one that begins with a deceptively simple, utterly terrifying invitation. Be ridiculous. Our story, each of our individual intricate stories, begins with an irrevocable dependence. We are born into a world utterly vulnerable, tiny bundles of need thrust into the vast unknown. It is here, in these primal moments, that the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan places his mirror stage. Imagine an infant, not yet fully grasping the boundaries of its own being, catching its reflection. It sees a whole, a unified image, often for the first time. But this recognition isn't solitary. It's almost invariably mediated by the affirming gaze of another, a parent, a caregiver. Look, that's you. Their eyes, their smile, their voice convey. In that shared glance, the nascent self begins to coalesce, but it does so already intertwined with the other, already understanding its existence as reflected, as seen. We need that look to feel real, to be anchored, to be loved. This isn't a flaw. It's the foundational architecture of our psyche. We are, from our earliest breath, creatures of connection, wired for the regard of others. This fundamental need blossoms into a complex dance of desire. We desire to be desired. We crave the approving nod, the warm smile, the unspoken acknowledgement that we belong, that we are valued. The other's gaze becomes a compass, guiding our choices, shaping our ambitions, sometimes even dictating our dreams. We are, whether we admit it or not, entangled up to our necks in the web of external perception. We dress not just for comfort or style, but for the statement it makes to others. We speak not just to convey information, but to elicit a certain response, a certain image of ourselves in the listener's mind. This intricate performance is part of the social contract, a delicate balance of self-expression and communal harmony. But what happens when this intrinsic need morphs, when it metastasizes into something pathological? What happens when the desire for approval becomes an insatiable hunger, and the fear of disapproval becomes a paralyzing terror? This is the point where the intricate dance becomes a frantic stagger. We find ourselves unable to walk down the street without the suffocating certainty that every eye is upon us, dissecting our gait, our clothes, our very existence with harsh judgment. The ambient noise of the city becomes a chorus of whispered critiques. A sideways glance from a stranger is interpreted as damning evidence of our inadequacy. Every silence in a conversation feels like a condemnation. This isn't just being sensitive. It's living in a self-imposed panopticon, where the imagined gaze of the other holds us captive. It's often said that the two greatest fears underpinning much of human anxiety are the fear of being alone and the fear of being ridiculous. Loneliness, that hollow ache of disconnection, echoes our primal need for the other. But the fear of being ridiculous, that strikes at the heart of our constructed self, the carefully curated image we present to the world, an image often built upon the shifting sands of others' approval. To be ridiculous is to have that image shattered, to be exposed as imperfect, clumsy, foolish. In short, to be vulnerably human in a way we've been conditioned to dread. The Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa, in his Poema em linha reta, poem in a straight line, masterfully captures this feeling of singular, flawed humanity amidst a world of perceived perfection. He laments, "Never have I known anyone who has been buck-slapped in life. All my acquaintances have been princes, all of them princes in life. I, who have been as common as a dandelion, have been taken seriously by I don't know whom. It is true that I have never been given to heroics. I have never done anything but try to be myself. And I have failed. Everyone I know, and I mean everyone, has been a hero in his own way. Everyone I know has been, at least once, unforgettable. Not I. I have never been anything but what I am. When I was a child, I was ridiculous. As a young man, I was ridiculous. Now, as a man, I am still ridiculous. Oh, if I could only believe that there was something noble in my ridicule." Pessoa voices that gnawing suspicion that everyone else has it figured out, that they glide through life with an effortless grace, never stumbling, never making a fool of themselves, while we, in stark contrast, feel like a collection of awkward missteps and embarrassing blunders. This perception, of course, is a magnificent illusion. Everyone stumbles. Everyone has their moments of utter ridiculousness. The tragedy is that our fear of it keeps us isolated in our perceived imperfection. So, the pivotal question arises. Is it possible to lose this deep-seated fear of being ridiculous? Can we dismantle the panopticon and walk freely in our own skin? The answer, remarkably, is yes. And one of the most potent tools for this dismantling comes from an unexpected place: Logotherapy, a school of psychotherapy founded by Viktor Frankl. The concept is called Paradoxical Intention. Paradoxical intention is a technique that invites you to consciously and deliberately wish for or even try to enact the very thing you fear. It sounds counterintuitive, even absurd, but its psychological mechanics are profound. By intentionally embracing the feared symptom or situation, you strip it of its power. The anticipatory anxiety, that dread that fuels the fear, begins to dissipate because you are no longer fighting the fear. You are, in a sense, inviting it for tea and making it the guest of honor. Let's explore this with examples. Imagine someone who suffers from a crippling fear of blushing in social situations. The more they worry about blushing, the more likely they are to blush. This creates a vicious cycle. Using paradoxical intention, their therapist might instruct them, "For the next week, when you go into a social situation, I want you to try to blush. I want you to try to blush more intensely than you ever have before. Try to be the reddest person in the room. Show everyone how magnificently you can blush." What happens? Often, the patient finds it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to blush on command. The very act of trying to do what they fear creates a psychic distance. It introduces an element of humor and detachment. The fear, which thrives on resistance and avoidance, is suddenly met with an exaggerated embrace, and it often shrinks in response. Consider someone with a fear of public speaking, terrified that their hands will shake uncontrollably. Paradoxical intention would have them say to themselves before a presentation, "All right, hands, let's see you really shake today. Let's put on a show. Let's aim for an earthquake." By exaggerating the fear, by leaning into it with a touch of defiance and humor, the speaker often finds their hands tremble less, or that the trembling, if it occurs, no longer holds the same terrifying significance. Or take the fear of insomnia. The more you worry about not sleeping, the harder it is to sleep. Frankl would suggest telling yourself, okay, I am going to stay awake tonight. I will try to be the most awake person in the entire city. No sleep for me. By paradoxically intending to stay awake, the pressure to fall asleep is removed, often allowing sleep to come naturally. The core principle is this: our anxieties are often amplified by our desperate attempts to avoid or suppress them. Paradoxical intention flips the script. It says, if you're afraid of looking foolish, then go out and intentionally look foolish in a small, controlled way. Wear mismatched socks. Hum a silly tune a little too loudly in the supermarket aisle. Tell a joke that you know might fall flat. You actively invite the possibility of ridicule, and in doing so, you learn that the sky doesn't fall. The world doesn't end. In fact, you might even find it liberating. If you're finding this exploration of freedom from fear resonant, if these ideas are sparking something within you, I warmly invite you to hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us grow, continue producing content like this, and reach more people who might benefit. Don't forget to share this video with anyone you think might need to hear this message. And please leave your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love hearing from you. This idea of embracing the seemingly absurd to find a deeper truth or freedom isn't entirely new. The ancient Greeks, those foundational thinkers of Western civilization, certainly understood the power of unconventional behavior to challenge norms and reveal wisdom. While Zeno of Elea is primarily famed for his paradoxes of motion and plurality, which forced people to question their fundamental understanding of reality, the spirit of using the unexpected to provoke thought was alive in that era. Think of Diogenes the Cynic, a contemporary of Plato who engaged in numerous acts of public shamelessness, living in a barrel, eating in the marketplace, and even, as legend has it, walking through Athens with a lit lamp in broad daylight, claiming to be searching for an honest man. Or consider the apocryphal tale, sometimes attributed in spirit to philosophers who challenged convention, of a sage parading a fish on a leash through the town square. The point wasn't the fish or the lamp. It was the spectacular indifference to bewildered stares, the deliberate act of being ridiculous by societal standards. It was a performance meant to shatter complacency, to force onlookers to question their own ingrained assumptions and the arbitrary nature of many social customs. These philosophers, in their own ways, were being intentionally ridiculous to make profound statements about truth, convention, and freedom. Many great thinkers have echoed this sentiment of embracing one's unique, sometimes awkward, self. Oscar Wilde famously quipped, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Ralph Waldo Emerson, a beacon of American transcendentalism, urged, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." While not explicitly about being ridiculous, their words champion the authenticity that often requires us to risk looking foolish in the eyes of a conforming world. Brené Brown, a contemporary researcher, speaks extensively about vulnerability and what is the fear of being ridiculous if not a fear of being seen in our vulnerability? She argues that vulnerability is not weakness, but our greatest measure of courage. The courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. And this is where the magic truly lies. When we allow ourselves to be ridiculous, when we intentionally drop the exhausting pretense of perfection, we are not diminishing ourselves. We are, in fact, stepping into a profound and authentic form of freedom. The desperate need for the other's approval begins to loosen its grip. The imagined judgments of strangers lose their sting. Why? Because we have willingly, even playfully, embraced the very thing we feared. We have looked ridicule in the face and found that its power was largely an illusion, a shadow puppet magnified by our own anxieties. When you give yourself permission to trip and laugh, to sing off-key with gusto, to ask the stupid question, to wear the outlandish outfit simply because it brings you joy, you are signaling to yourself and to the world that your worth is not contingent upon flawless performance or universal acclaim. You are declaring that you are more interested in living fully than in being perceived perfectly. This is not an invitation to abandon all social graces or to become obnoxious for its own sake. It is an invitation to lighten up, to inject playfulness into our lives, and to defang the fear that keeps us small and constrained. It's about recognizing that those moments of perceived ridiculousness are often moments of genuine self-expression, of creativity, of joyful abandon. They are the moments when we are most truly ourselves, unfiltered and unashamed. So, let us raise a toast to the ridiculous, to the courage it takes to dance when no one else is, to speak your truth when your voice trembles, to pursue a passion that others deem silly. An ode to the ridiculous. You are the misstep that leads to a new path. You are the joyful noise in a room of stiff silence. You are the vibrant color splashed onto a muted canvas. You are the permission slip we grant ourselves to be gloriously, imperfectly human. You are not the enemy, but the jester in the king's court, speaking truth through laughter, reminding us that life is too precious to be lived in the gray shadows of conformity. You are the sparkle in the eye of the person who has finally stopped caring what they think. You are the wings we sprout when we dare to leap from the cliff of others' expectations. Be ridiculous and watch as the chains of shoulds and musts fall away. Be ridiculous and feel the exhilarating lightness of being truly unapologetically you. Be ridiculous and be free. It is in that joyful, uninhibited, sometimes clumsy, often hilarious embrace of our own potential for absurdity that we find our most authentic and liberating dance with life. If this journey into the heart of embracing the ridiculous has resonated with you, if you feel a little lighter, a little braver, please show your appreciation by giving this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't joined our community yet, now is the perfect time to subscribe. By doing so, you help our channel flourish, enabling us to continue creating meaningful content like this and reach even more people who are seeking to live more freely. And please don't hesitate to leave your comments below.